welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something that might be making your PC feel the heat, literally. High VRAM temperatures in graphics cards.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hot topic, pardon the pun. We've got some interesting source material to dig into.
We do. Excerpts from Decoding High VRAM Temperatures, and also a transcript from Realtek's YouTube channel, VRAM Dying No. You know the one.
Right, about VRAM getting hot and maybe causing cards to fail faster.
Exactly. So our mission, as always, is to pull out the key insights. Could these high temps actually shorten your card's life or hurt performance? We want to give you the core info, fast, clear, no fluff.
Let's do it. These sources mix real-world stuff people are seeing with some of the tech reasons behind it all. It's definitely relevant if you're pushing your system hard.
Okay, so let's start with those real-world observations. One thing that jumped out was seeing older GPUs like RX 580s, even some RX 6000 series chips.
Right, being put onto brand new circuit boards.
Yeah, and sold with full warranties. It kind of suggests the GPU chip itself is pretty tough.
It does. Makes you wonder about the other parts, though. Like
the VRAM. Because if they're confident reusing the GPU, does that mean the VRAM is maybe the weaker link they're gambling on? Especially in those, budget-focused reused designs?
That's a really good question. It highlights a potential vulnerability. The sources definitely lean into VRAM being under more thermal stress these days.
And it wasn't always this way, was it? I think one source mentioned, 7-10 years ago, VRAM temps weren't really a big deal.
Not really, no. The game changed, you could say.
What changed it?
Well, workloads got way more intense. Crypto mining was a huge factor, as both sources point out.
Ah, mining, right.
Yeah, it pushed VRAM, especially GDDR5, GDDR5X, super hard, running constantly at like 80, 90, even 100 degrees Celsius. And people started seeing failures on those X mining cards. There was even that visual clue.
The yellowing.
Exactly. The VRAM chips themselves would get this yellowish tint. Became kind of a notorious sign the card had been mined on hard.
Wow, a physical sign. And even though mining has changed, the VRAM stress hasn't gone away, has it?
Not at all. Now it's demanding games, AI tasks.
Yeah.
They keep the VRAM working constantly, pushing temps up.
So the same kind of pressure, just from different sources. High-end gaming, AI. It's relentless.
Precisely. Modern games with all the high-res textures, anti-aliasing, things like DLSS, ray tracing, it all hammers the VRAM, constant data transfer back and forth.
Which brings us to the tech basics. Just quickly, VRAM, video RAM, it's the graphics card's own dedicated memory, right? Holds textures, models, everything the GPU needs fast.
That's the gist. And like you said, all these new techniques need lots of data fast. The sources note that modern VRAM speeds hundreds of gigabytes per second generate serious heat.
And the newer types like GDDR6 and especially GDDR6X.
Yeah, GDDR6X is particularly known for running hot. It's just a function of how fast it operates. More speed, more power draw equals more heat.
And AI training takes it to another level, doesn't it? The Realtek transcript mentioned that.
Oh, absolutely. AI can mean running VRAM flat out. At high temps, 247. That's a different beast entirely compared to gaming.
Even long gaming sessions have peaks and troughs, I guess.
Exactly. AI training can be just sustained maximum load, a constant thermal challenge.
So, with all this heat, surely the manufacturers know about it. The sources say newer cards have active cooling for the VRAM.
That's a pretty clear sign they're aware.
Does it mean they see it as a definite problem, though? Or is it just, good engineering practice, maybe even marketing?
Well, adding thermal pads to connect the main heatsink directly to the VRAM chips that became much more common around the RTX 2000 series onwards, that's a big shift from older cards.
How so?
Older designs mainly cooled the GPU die itself and the VRMs, the power delivery parts. Directly cooling the VRAM like this now, it strongly suggests they recognize the need, especially with faster memory types generating more heat.
Okay, so VRAM's hotter, makers are cooling it better, but what happens if it does get too hot? What are people actually seeing out there, according to the community sources?
Well, across places like Reddit, Tom's Hardware, Tech Power Up, you see reports. A big one is performance loss throttling.
Right, the card slows itself down.
Exactly. When VRAM hits a certain threshold, maybe 100, 110 degrees C on some cards, it activates a protection mechanism. It cuts the VRAM clock speed to lower temps. Lower frame rates in games, slower performance overall. It's a safety feature, but it directly impacts your experience.
Okay, so performance takes a hit. What about, actual hardware issues? More serious stuff?
People report visual glitches, too. Artifacts, weird pixels, lines on the screen, color problems, often suspected to be linked to overheating VRAM.
Artifacting is never good.
No. And there's the thermal pads themselves. Over time, constant high heat can degrade them. They become less effective at transferring heat away.
Making the problem worse, potentially.
We could do, yeah. And then there's the sort of background worry, could that localized VRAM heat damage other nearby components on the card long term? It's mostly speculation, but it's out there.
So given all that, what can you actually do if you're worried about your VRAM temps? The sources had some suggestions.
First step, easy one. Monitor the temps. Use software to see what your VRAM junction temperature is doing under load.
What's considered okay.
Generally, 80 to 90 Celsius underload is often seen as acceptable, but if you're consistently hitting, say, 90, 95 degrees or more, it's probably worth looking into why.
And simple things like airflow.
Definitely. Improving case airflow helps everything, including VRAM indirectly. More cool air in, more hot air out. Basic, but effective.
What about for people comfortable opening up their card?
Well, replacing the VRAM thermal pads is an option people talk about, but you really need to know what you're doing.
Why is that?
Getting the exact right thickness is critical. Too thin, you get poor contact, poor cooling. Too thick, you might prevent the main cooler contacting the GPU properly, or even stress the board. It's delicate.
Right, not for beginners then.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's interesting. We have all this community chatter, observations, even manufacturers changing cooling designs, yet no official word from NVIDIA or AMD saying, yes, high VRAM temps reduce lifespan.
That's the crux of it, isn't it? There's a disconnect. A chip maker like Micron might spec their GDDR6X for, say, up to 115 degrees Celsius maximum operating temp.
Okay.
But that's the chip spec. It doesn't automatically translate to guaranteed long-term reliability for the entire graphics card running constantly near that temp in the real world, especially under intense 2047 AI workloads.
So the manufacturers give a max temp, but they don't really comment on running near that max for thousands of hours straight in a hot graphics card.
Pretty much. There's probably just not enough long-term data for those specific, very demanding, continuous use cases within a whole graphics card system. Occasional spikes, probably fine within spec. Sustained high temps like 95100C and AI constantly, that could potentially accelerate degradation over time.
And could lead to instability too. Errors, crashes.
It's possible, yeah. Higher temps can sometimes affect data integrity. And like we said, even without outright failure, the performance throttling at those high temps is a direct hit to the user experience.
Okay, let's just quickly recap the main things driving these high VRAM temps. What are the key factors again?
Sure. Number one, demanding modern games, high-res textures, AI features, ray tracing. They just need loads of VRAM bandwidth.
Constantly busy.
Right. Second, the VRAM tech itself. GDDR6, GDDR6X, they're faster, which inherently means more power draw and heat.
Makes sense.
Third, AI workloads. Pushing VRAM to the absolute limit for potentially days or weeks on end.
Different kind of stress.
Definitely. Fourth, the effectiveness of the card's cooling design for the VRAM specifically. SNO cards weren't always focused there.
And finally,
the thermal pads themselves potentially degrading over time, becoming less efficient at heat transfer.
Got it. So wrapping up this deep dive, it feels like even without official confirmation from the card makers, there's a lot of smoke here. Real-world observations, community reports, changes in cooling designs. It all points towards high VRAM temps being a legitimate concern, something that could impact long-term health and performance.
I think that's a fair summary. The evidence, though unofficial in terms of manufacturer statements on longevity, is pretty compelling. Monitoring your temps seems like a sensible precaution.
Absolutely. Which leads us to our final thought for you, the listener. Given that games and AI are only going to get more demanding on VRAM, and we're seeing these potential risks from high temps, what's next? What kind of cooling innovations or design shifts might we see in future GPUs to tackle VRAM heat better? And what more do we need to know as consumers about the real long-term effects? It's something to think about.
Definitely a space to keep an eye on.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
If you enjoy this video, please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to the latest update from my channel. Thank you for watching till the end, and see you in the next video.